Okay, let's be real for a second. When we talk about K-pop, there are groups that entertain you, groups that impress you, and then there's Stray Kids, a group that literally rewires your entire emotional system and leaves you standing there, jaw on the floor, wondering what just happened. We're talking about 8 guys who came into this industry not by following the rules, but by tearing up the rulebook and writing their own. But here's the thing, beyond the chaotic energy, beyond the stadium shaking performances, beyond the billions of streams, there are moments, real moments, that made millions of fans around the world go completely, absolutely, utterly speechless. And no, we're not just talking about cool dance moves or catchy hooks. We're talking about the kind of moments that hit you so deep, you forget to breathe. Now here's what I want you to think about. Which member do you think made an entire arena fall silent with just one sentence? Who shocked the industry so hard that even senior artists had to stand up and acknowledge it? Which member's backstory is so intense that even people who don't listen to K-pop couldn't hold back tears? And who pulled off something so legendary that it literally trended worldwide in under 10 minutes? If you think you already know the answers, trust me, you don't. Because this list is going to hit different. So buckle up, stays and newcomers alike. We're counting down from number 8 all the way to number 1, and every single spot on this list carries a moment so powerful, so raw, and so unforgettable that it changed the way people look at Stray Kids forever. Let's get into it. Number 8, Bang Chan, the leader who carried an entire group on his back before the world even knew their name. You want to talk about speechless? Let's start right here, right now, with the man who arguably sacrificed the most before Stray Kids even existed, Bang Chan Christopher Bang. The kid from Sydney, Australia, who left everything behind at the age of 13 to fly across the ocean to Seoul, South Korea, chasing a dream that had no guarantee, no safety net, and, honestly, almost no hope at certain points. Now let me put that in perspective for you, because I don't think people truly understand the weight of what that means. Imagine being a teenager, barely out of middle school, leaving your parents, your little sister, your friends, your entire world behind, to live in a foreign country where you barely speak the language, where you sleep in a cramped dormitory with other trainees, where every single day is a competition to prove that you deserve to stay. That's not a vacation. That's not an adventure. That's survival. And Bang Chan didn't do that for 1 year. Not 2. Not 3. He did it for 7 years. 7 years. Let that sink in. Most people can't even commit to a gym membership for 7 months, and this guy committed his entire youth, his entire adolescence, to a dream that the industry kept telling him wasn't ready yet. During those 7 years, Bang Chan watched trainee after trainee debut before him. He watched friends walk through that door, become idols, become stars, while he stayed behind in the practice room, being told, not yet, maybe next time, you're not ready. Can you imagine what that does to a person mentally? Can you imagine waking up every single day, giving everything you've got, and being told it's still not enough? There were moments, and he's talked about this openly, where he seriously considered giving up. Packing his bags, flying back to Sydney, and just living a normal life. And honestly, nobody would have blamed him. 7 years of waiting is not patience, it's torture. But here's where the speechless part begins, because Bang Chan didn't just survive those 7 years, he used them. While other trainees were focusing on just dancing or just singing, Bang Chan was in the studio at 3 in the morning, teaching himself how to produce music. He was learning composition, arrangement, mixing, writing lyrics in both Korean and English, studying every genre from hip-hop to EDM to rock to pop, absorbing everything like a sponge that refused to dry out. He wasn't just preparing to be an idol, he was preparing to be an architect. And when JYP Entertainment finally gave him the green light, they didn't just say, okay, you can debut now. No, they said something far more insane. They said, pick your own members. Build your own team. Let me say that again because I need you to understand how unprecedented that is in K-pop. A trainee, not a producer, not a CEO, not a manager, a trainee was given the authority to hand select the members of his own group. That almost never happens. In an industry where companies decide everything from your hair color to your stage name, Bang Chan was trusted to build a team from scratch. And what did he do? He didn't pick the most popular trainees. He didn't pick the ones with the biggest fan followings or the most Instagram followers. He picked the ones he believed in. He picked the ones who had that fire in their eyes. He picked Han, who was so shy he could barely perform in front of people but could write lyrics that cut straight to your soul. He picked Felix, who had literally just arrived from Australia and could barely speak Korean, but had a presence that could light up an entire room. He picked Hyunjin, who was still raw and unpolished, but had an artistic intensity that was undeniable. He picked each member not for what they were, but for what he knew they could become. And that right there is the kind of leadership that doesn't come from a textbook. That comes from the heart. But the moment that truly left millions of fans speechless, the moment that still circulates on social media to this day and makes people cry every single time they watch it, was during one of Stray Kids' concerts. When Bang Chan stood on that stage in front of tens of thousands of fans, and he broke down. Not a little teary-eyed, not a subtle sniffle, he fully broke down, sobbing, barely able to speak, because the weight of everything he had carried for years finally came crashing down all at once. He tried to talk, tried to thank the fans, tried to say how grateful he was, but the words wouldn't come out. And in that moment, the entire arena went silent. Tens of thousands of people, completely silent, just watching this man, this leader, this rock, this person who always smiles, always encourages, always puts everyone else before himself, finally allow himself to be vulnerable. And then something incredible happened. The fans started singing to him. Without any cue, without any prompt, stays in the audience began singing Stray Kids' own songs back to him, as if to say, "You carried us this whole time. Now let us carry you." If that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what will. And here's the thing that people outside the fandom don't realize: Bang Chan does a weekly live stream called Chan's Room, where he stays up late, sometimes until 2 or 3 in the morning, just to talk to fans. Not to promote an album. Not to sell merchandise. Just to talk. To check in. To ask how their day was. To play music he's been working on. To tell them they matter. He's done this consistently for years, and during some of the hardest times during the pandemic, during controversies, during moments when the group faced intense public scrutiny, he showed up. Every single time. He showed up and he said, "I'm here. We're going to be okay." That's not an idol. That's not a celebrity. That's a leader in every sense of the word. Bang Chan left fans speechless not because of one single viral moment, but because of a lifetime of moments. Moments of sacrifice, moments of resilience, moments of raw, unfiltered love for the people around him. He carried Stray Kids on his back before anyone knew who they were, and even now, standing at the top, he still acts like he's that 13-year-old kid from Sydney with something to prove. And maybe that's exactly why he hit so hard, because he never forgot where he came from, and he never stopped fighting for the people he loves. That's Bang Chan. That's number 8. And if this is where we're starting, just imagine what's coming next. Now here's what I need you to ask yourself. If number 8 is a leader whose 7-year journey made an entire arena fall silent, then what could number 7 possibly bring to the table that hits even harder? What if I told you the next member on this list didn't just leave fans speechless, he left the entire global art world shook? Stay right here, because number 7 is about to change everything you thought you knew. Number 7, Hyunjin, the living canvas who turned every stage into a museum of raw emotion. Alright, let me ask you something before we even get into this. Have you ever watched someone perform and genuinely forgot that you were watching a human being? Like, for a split second, your brain short-circuits because what you're seeing doesn't make logical sense? Because that's exactly what Hyunjin does to people. Every single time. Hwang Hyunjin isn't just a dancer. He isn't just a performer. He isn't just a visual. This man is a living, breathing work of art who treats every stage like it's his last, every movement like it's a brushstroke on an invisible canvas, and every second of music like it's an opportunity to rip your soul out of your chest and hand it back to you in a way you've never felt before. And the reason he's on this list, the reason millions of fans have been left completely, utterly speechless by him, goes so much deeper than just, he dances well. This is a story about an artist who refused to be put in a box, and in doing so, redefined what it means to perform in the modern era of K-pop. Let's rewind. Before Hyunjin became the icon he is today, he was a trainee at JYP Entertainment who was, and this might surprise you, constantly told he wasn't good enough. Yeah, you heard that right. The guy who now gets called one of the greatest performers of his generation was once the kid in the practice room who couldn't keep up. When Hyunjin first entered JYP, his dance skills were considered below average compared to the other trainees. He didn't have the technical foundation. He didn't have the years of formal training. What he had was something that couldn't be taught, an almost obsessive need to express emotion through his body. But in the early days, that raw emotion was messy, uncontrolled, inconsistent. Trainers would critique him, other trainees would outperform him in evaluations, and there were moments where Hyunjin genuinely questioned whether he belonged there at all. But here's the thing about Hyunjin that separates him from almost anyone else in this industry. When he's told he can't do something, he doesn't get discouraged. He gets consumed. He becomes obsessed. He locks himself in the practice room and doesn't come out until his reflection in the mirror shows him something he's satisfied with. And satisfaction for Hyunjin is not a low bar. During the Stray Kids survival show, there was a moment that hardcore fans still talk about to this day. Hyunjin was put in a position where his performance would determine whether he stayed in the group or got eliminated. The pressure was insane. Cameras everywhere, judges watching, his entire future hanging on a single stage. And what did Hyunjin do? He didn't just perform, he transformed. He stepped onto that stage and delivered something so emotionally charged, so technically precise, so hauntingly beautiful, that even the other trainees watching from the sidelines had their mouths open. JYP himself, a man who has seen thousands of trainees come and go, looked visibly affected. That was the moment people realized Hyunjin wasn't just another pretty face in K-pop. He was something else entirely. But let's fast forward, because the real speechless moments came later, when Hyunjin fully came into his own as an artist, and I mean artist in the most complete sense of the word. See, what most casual fans don't know is that Hyunjin doesn't just perform art on stage, he creates it off stage too. This man paints. And not like casual, hobby-level painting. We're talking deep, emotionally complex, visually stunning works of art that look like they belong in a gallery. Hyunjin's paintings have been shared with fans through various platforms, and every single time, the reaction is the same: disbelief. People cannot believe that the same person who commands a stage with explosive choreography also sits quietly in a room somewhere, pouring his emotions onto a canvas with a level of vulnerability that most people can't even access in their private thoughts. His art is raw. It's dark sometimes. It's beautiful always. And it tells a story that words simply cannot capture. He once described his creative process by saying that he doesn't think when he paints, he feels. And that philosophy extends directly to his performances. If you've ever watched Hyunjin perform a solo stage, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a reason why fan-recorded videos of his performances go viral within minutes. There's a reason why reaction channels, people who watch K-pop for the first time, consistently lose their minds when Hyunjin appears on screen. It's because he doesn't dance to the music. He becomes the music. Every movement has intention. Every facial expression tells a micro-story. Every pause, every breath, every flick of his wrist is calculated to make you feel something specific. And the control he has over an audience is almost terrifying. He can make an arena of 60,000 people hold their breath without saying a single word. Now, let's talk about the moment that truly, undeniably left the global fandom speechless, and I mean the kind of speechless where social media literally broke. During Kingdom, Legendary War, the survival competition show where K-pop groups battled for supremacy, Stray Kids delivered performances that are still considered some of the greatest stages in Korean television history. And at the center of many of those stages was Hyunjin. But there was one performance in particular, and if you know, where Hyunjin did something that transcended K-pop entirely. The choreography, the concept, the sheer artistry of his movement during that stage was so extraordinary that it didn't just trend on Korean social media, it trended worldwide. Dance professionals, choreographers, contemporary artists, people who had never heard of Stray Kids in their lives, were sharing clips of Hyunjin and saying, "Who is this? What am I watching? This isn't idol dancing, this is art." And that distinction is important because in an industry that often reduces performers to synchronized formations and catchy routines, Hyunjin was out there proving that a K-pop stage could be a legitimate artistic statement. He wasn't just hitting choreography points, he was telling stories with his body, painting emotions in the air, creating moments that existed somewhere between contemporary dance, theater, and pure, unfiltered human expression. And the reactions? The reactions were unreal. Fans were posting videos of themselves crying. Not because of a sad song, not because of a sentimental speech, but because of the way Hyunjin moved. Because of the emotion he transmitted through nothing but physicality. That's a level of artistry that most performers never reach in their entire careers, and Hyunjin was doing it in his early 20s. But here's the part that makes this even more powerful, and it's something that a lot of people don't talk about enough. Hyunjin went through an incredibly difficult period in early 2021 when he faced a public controversy that led to a temporary hiatus from the group. For months, he was away from the stage, away from the fans, away from the thing that gave his life meaning. And during that time, the uncertainty was crushing, not just for him, but for stays around the world who didn't know if they would ever see him perform again. When Hyunjin finally returned, the moment he stepped back onto that stage, something shifted in the atmosphere. It was electric. It was emotional. Fans who had waited months, who had held on to hope, who had refused to give up on him, they saw him again, and the tears were instantaneous. And Hyunjin? He didn't come back diminished. He didn't come back cautious or restrained. He came back sharper, deeper, more emotionally connected to his art than ever before. It was as if the pain of that period had refined him, like fire purifying metal. His performances after the hiatus carried a weight, a gravity, a maturity that wasn't there before. And fans felt it. The entire world felt it. Every performance became a statement, "I'm still here, and I'm going to show you something you've never seen before." And he did. Over and over and over again. Hyunjin left millions of fans speechless because he proved that art isn't about perfection. It's about truth. It's about taking everything you've been through, the doubt, the pain, the criticism, the fear, and transforming it into something beautiful. He doesn't perform for applause. He performs because it's the only way he knows how to breathe. And when you watch someone perform with that level of sincerity, that level of soul, it doesn't matter if you're a K-pop fan or not, you feel it. You feel it in your chest, in your gut, in that part of you that recognizes real, genuine, undeniable artistry. That's Hyunjin. That's number 7. And he's only the beginning of what's about to get even more insane on this list. Now, let me leave you with this. If number 7 is an artist who made the entire world rethink what a K-pop stage can be, then what could number 6 possibly do to top that? What if I told you the next member on this list has a voice so deep, so unexpectedly powerful, that it literally stopped people mid-scroll and made them question everything they thought they knew about him? You're not ready for this one. Trust me. Number 6, Felix, the boy who was eliminated, came back and made the entire planet fall in love with a voice nobody saw coming. Let me paint a picture for you, because this story deserves the full cinematic treatment. Imagine you're scrolling through your phone late at night, half asleep, not really paying attention to anything, and suddenly a video pops up on your timeline. It's a K-pop idol, young, baby-faced, covered in freckles, looking like literal sunshine wrapped in human skin. You think you know what's about to happen. You expect a sweet, high-pitched voice, maybe something cute, maybe something airy and light. And then he opens his mouth. And what comes out is not what you expected. What comes out is a voice so deep, so impossibly low, so earth-shatteringly rich that your phone might as well have turned into a subwoofer. Your brain does a full system reboot. You look at his face. You look at his voice. You look at his face again. It doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense. And yet, it's real. That's Felix. That's Lee Yongbak. That's the moment. And there have been millions of these moments with millions of different people around the world where Felix left you completely, absolutely, no words left in your vocabulary, speechless. But oh, his voice is just the surface. The real story of why Felix belongs on this list goes so much deeper, and it starts with one of the most heartbreaking moments in Stray Kids' entire history. Let's go back to 2017, back to the survival show that would determine who would make it into Stray Kids and who would be sent home. Felix had just arrived from Sydney, Australia. And when I say just arrived, I mean this kid was fresh off the plane. His Korean was, and he'd be the first to admit this, borderline non-existent. He could barely hold a conversation. He could barely understand what the trainers were telling him. While other trainees were refining their skills, perfecting their techniques, Felix was simultaneously trying to learn an entire language while also learning choreography, improving his vocals, and adapting to a culture that was completely foreign to him. The pressure was unimaginable. Now put yourself in his shoes for a second. You're 17 years old. You're in a country where you can barely order food at a restaurant. You're surrounded by trainees who have been in the system for years, who speak the language fluently, who have established relationships with the trainers and each other. And you're there, standing in the back of the practice room, trying to understand what's happening, trying to keep up, trying not to drown. And you know what the cruelest part was? Felix wasn't bad. He wasn't untalented. He wasn't lacking in potential. The kid could dance, really dance. His stage presence was magnetic even back then. His energy was infectious. But the language barrier was a wall, and in a competition that demanded perfection across every category, that wall was enough. During one of the evaluations on the survival show, the decision was made. Felix was eliminated. Let me say that again, because I need you to feel the weight of it. Felix was eliminated. The boy who would go on to become one of the most recognizable, most beloved, most iconic figures in all of K-pop was told he wasn't good enough to be in Stray Kids. He was cut from the team. And the footage of that moment, if you've seen it, you know, is one of the most gut-wrenching things you will ever watch. Felix, standing there, trying to hold it together, his eyes red, his lips trembling, while the other members, the members who had already grown to love him, who had already accepted him as their brother, stood in shock. Bang Chan, the leader, looked absolutely devastated. The other members were in tears. Because they knew, in their hearts, that Felix belonged with them. That the group wasn't complete without him. And Felix? Felix walked out of that room with his head down, carrying the kind of pain that no 17-year-old should ever have to carry, the pain of being told that your dream, the thing you crossed an ocean for, the thing you left your family for, was over. But here's where the story takes the turn that gives me chills every single time I think about it. Because it wasn't over. Not even close. JYP Entertainment made the decision to bring Felix back. And when I tell you that the moment Felix walked back into that room, back to his members, was one of the most emotionally explosive moments in K-pop survival show history, I am not exaggerating. The members saw him. They couldn't believe it. The screaming, the crying, the hugging, it was pure, raw, unfiltered emotion that no script could ever replicate. Bang Chan grabbed him like he was never going to let go. The other members piled on. And Felix, the boy who had been told he wasn't enough, stood there, tears streaming down his face, realizing that he had been given a second chance. A second chance that he would spend the rest of his career making sure he deserved. And did he ever make sure? From that moment on, Felix attacked every single day with an intensity that was almost frightening. He studied Korean relentlessly. He practiced until his body gave out. He poured himself into every recording session, every rehearsal, every performance, with the energy of someone who knows exactly what it feels like to have everything taken away. And slowly, steadily, undeniably, Felix didn't just catch up to the other members. He became one of the most indispensable parts of the entire group. His deep voice became Stray Kids' secret weapon, that unexpected bass drop in songs that hits you like a freight train. Producers started writing parts specifically designed to showcase that voice because there was literally nobody else in K-pop who sounded like him. Nobody. In an industry of thousands of idols, Felix's voice was a one of one. A fingerprint. An anomaly so unique that the moment you heard it, you knew exactly who it was. But Felix didn't just leave fans speechless with his voice. He did it with his heart. This is the member who bakes for his group mates at 3 in the morning just because he wants to see them smile. This is the member who tells fans, "I love you," in a way that somehow doesn't feel like a performance. It feels real. It feels like he genuinely, truly, deeply cares about every single person who has ever supported him. And fans feel that. They feel it so strongly that Felix has become something more than an idol to millions of people. He's become a source of comfort. A safe space. A reminder that kindness and warmth still exist in a world that often feels cold. And then there's the fashion world, because apparently being a vocal anomaly and an emotional pillar wasn't enough for Felix. He also had to go and become a global fashion icon. When luxury fashion houses started paying attention to K-pop, Felix wasn't just on the radar, he was the radar. His unique visuals, the freckles that he was once insecure about but now wears like constellations on his skin, the duality between his soft features and his powerful presence, the way he carries himself with both confidence and humility, made him a magnet for the high fashion world. And when he started appearing at major fashion events, the reaction was nuclear. People who had never heard a single Stray Kids song were suddenly Googling who is the freckled boy from the fashion show and falling into a rabbit hole they would never climb out of. That's the Felix effect. You come for the voice, you stay for the warmth, and you leave as a completely different person. But if I had to pinpoint the single moment that encapsulates why Felix leaves millions of fans speechless, it would be this. It's the way he talks about his journey. In interviews, in live streams, in quiet moments with fans, Felix has shared openly about how scared he was, how lonely he felt, how close he came to losing everything. And he doesn't share these things for sympathy. He shares them because he wants other people who are going through hard times to know that it gets better. That being told you're not enough doesn't mean you're not enough. That getting knocked down doesn't mean you stay down. He is living, breathing proof that the worst moment of your life can become the setup for the greatest comeback story ever told. That's Felix. The boy who was eliminated and came back to conquer the world. The voice that defies physics. The heart that defies logic. The freckles that became a galaxy. That's number 6. And we're only getting started. Now, here's what I want you to sit with before we move on. If number 6 is someone who turned elimination into a global phenomenon, what kind of story does number 5 carry that could possibly compete with that? What if I told you the next member on this list possesses something so powerful, so versatile, so ridiculously explosive, that industry professionals have called it one of the greatest weapons in all of 4th generation K-pop? You think you know who it is. But do you really know what they've done? Let's find out. Number 5, Changbin, the human weapon whose mouth moves faster than your brain can process. Okay, I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to take a breath. A real one. Because what I'm about to tell you about KSPO Changbin is going to require your full, undivided, 100% attention. Are you ready? Good. Because this man, this compact, explosive, absolutely terrifying force of nature is the reason why music producers, vocal coaches, and rap analysts around the world have collectively agreed on one thing. Stray Kids has a weapon that no other group in 4th generation K-pop can replicate. And that weapon has a name. It's Changbin. Now let me set the stage here, because if you only know Changbin from surface-level clips or casual fan edits, you're missing about 95% of the picture. What you see on the surface is a rapper. A good rapper. A really good rapper. But what's underneath? What's underneath is a once-in-a-generation talent who can switch flows like he's flipping channels, who can go from aggressive, chest-pounding, stadium-rattling intensity to soft, vulnerable, tear-jerking sincerity in the span of a single verse, and who writes lyrics with the kind of depth and precision that would make seasoned songwriters twice his age sit down and take notes. Let's go back to the beginning, because Changbin's origin story is one of the most underrated narratives in all of K-pop. Before he became the razor-sharp lyricist and performer you see today, Changbin was a kid who discovered rap not as a career ambition, but as a survival mechanism. Growing up, Changbin found himself drawn to hip-hop and rap because it was the one form of expression that allowed him to say the things he couldn't say in normal conversation. The frustration, the ambition, the hunger to prove himself, the insecurity that he carried quietly beneath a confident exterior, all of it went into his writing. And when he auditioned for JYP Entertainment, the trainers immediately recognized something different about him. It wasn't just that he could rap fast, lots of trainees could rap fast. It was that every word out of his mouth had weight, intention, meaning. He wasn't performing rap, he was living it. When Bang Chan was assembling the team that would become Stray Kids, Changbin was one of the first names on the list, and there's a very specific reason for that. Along with Bang Chan and Han, Changbin became one-third of 3RACHA, Stray Kids' legendary in-house production unit. And when I say legendary, I'm not throwing that word around casually. 3RACHA is responsible for writing, composing, and producing the vast majority of Stray Kids' discography. We're talking hundreds of songs. Hundreds. In an industry where most idol groups receive songs from external producers and perform what they're given, Stray Kids, through 3RACHA, create their own music from the ground up. And Changbin isn't just a contributor in that process, he's an engine. His ability to write rap verses is almost inhuman in its speed and quality. There are stories, confirmed by the other members, of Changbin sitting down and writing an entire verse in 10 minutes. Not a rough draft. Not a skeleton. A finished, polished, performance-ready verse in 10 minutes. While other people are still staring at a blank page trying to figure out their first line, Changbin has already written, revised, and mentally rehearsed an entire section. That kind of creative velocity is rare in any genre. In K-pop, it's practically mythological. But let's talk about the thing that truly left millions of fans speechless, because it's not just about writing fast, it's about what happens when Changbin gets on a stage and opens his mouth. If you have ever seen Changbin perform live, and I mean truly live, in a concert setting with the bass shaking the floor and the lights cutting through smoke, then you know that this man transforms into something that barely seems human. His rap delivery is so aggressive, so precise, so rhythmically complex that your ears can barely keep up with what's happening. He doesn't just ride the beat, he attacks it. He dismantles it. He takes the instrumental apart piece by piece and reassembles it with his voice in a way that makes you feel like the music was always supposed to sound like this, like it was incomplete before he touched it. There's a moment during Stray Kids performances, and veteran stays know exactly what I'm talking about, where the music drops, the spotlight hits Changbin, and he launches into a verse at a speed and intensity that makes the audience physically react. Not just cheering. Not just screaming. People grab each other. People cover their mouths. People look at the person next to them with wide eyes as if to say, "Are you hearing what I'm hearing right now?" Because what Changbin does with rhythm and flow is not normal. Rap analysts on YouTube have literally slowed down his verses frame by frame, syllable by syllable, to try to understand how he fits that many words, that many rhythmic changes, that many tonal shifts into a single bar. And their conclusion? It shouldn't be possible. But Changbin makes it look effortless. And here's where the emotional depth comes in, because if Changbin was just a fast rapper, he'd be impressive but not speechless-inducing. What makes Changbin genuinely special, what separates him from every other rapper in K-pop, is his vulnerability. This is a man who has stood on stage in front of tens of thousands of people and rapped about his insecurities with zero filter. He's talked about feeling like he's not enough. He's talked about the pressure of living up to expectations. He's talked about the fear of failure, the weight of responsibility, the loneliness that comes with pouring everything you have into your craft and wondering if it's ever going to be recognized. And he doesn't hide these feelings behind metaphors or abstract lyrics. He puts them front and center, raw and uncut, like he's daring the world to judge him for being honest. One of the most speechless-inducing moments in Changbin's career came during a fan meeting where he performed a self-written rap that was so deeply personal, so emotionally exposed, that the entire venue went quiet. Not the polite quiet of people listening respectfully, the stunned quiet of people who are hearing something so real that they don't know how to respond. He rapped about the journey from being a nobody to standing on stages around the world, about the people who doubted him, about the nights he spent questioning whether he made the right choice, and about the moment he realized that every single struggle was worth it because it led him to exactly where he was supposed to be. By the time he finished, fans were crying. Members were crying. And Changbin himself, the guy who usually carries himself with the energy of a tank rolling through a battlefield, was standing there with tears in his eyes, looking out at a sea of people who loved him not despite his vulnerability, but because of it. And then there's the duality that absolutely destroys people's expectations. Because outside of performances, Changbin is one of the funniest, most chaotic, most endearing members of Stray Kids. He's the guy who does EGO, cute, exaggerated expressions, with a completely straight face and somehow makes it hilarious. He's the guy who roasts the other members with surgical precision and then immediately hugs them like nothing happened. He's the guy who flexes his muscles with exaggerated confidence, who makes ridiculous faces during behind-the-scenes content, who turns every group activity into a comedy show. And this contrast, this insane, whiplash-inducing contrast between the man who terrifies you on stage and the man who makes you laugh until your stomach hurts off stage, is part of why fans are so obsessed with him. Because you never know which Changbin you're going to get, and both versions are equally captivating. But at the core of it all, what makes Changbin leave millions of people speechless is the undeniable truth that he earned every single ounce of his success. Nobody handed him anything. Nobody gave him shortcuts. He walked into an industry that values visuals and popularity, and he said, "I don't care about any of that. I'm going to be so good that you can't ignore me." And he did exactly that. Through pure skill, pure work ethic, pure refusal to be anything less than extraordinary, Changbin carved out a space for himself that nobody else can fill. He proved that in a world obsessed with image, raw talent still wins. That's Changbin, the human weapon, the lyrical architect, the man whose mouth moves at the speed of light and whose heart runs even faster. That's number 5. And we're not slowing down. Now, I need you to really focus here, because the next member on this list, number 4, carries a story that's different from anything we've talked about so far. What if I told you the next person isn't the loudest, isn't the most dramatic, isn't the one who demands attention, but is the one who commands it in the most quietly devastating way possible? What if I told you this member has a presence so powerful that even when they say nothing, the entire room shifts? You're about to meet the silent storm. Stay right here. Number 4, Lino, the silent storm who says nothing and still controls every room he walks into. Alright, let's switch gears completely. Because after talking about explosive rap verses and earth-shaking vocals and emotional leadership speeches, number 4 is going to hit you from a direction you absolutely did not expect. Let me introduce you, or reintroduce you, to Lino. Lee Mi-ho. The member who doesn't scream for your attention, doesn't beg for your applause, doesn't perform emotional monologues to win your heart. No. Lino is the type of person who walks into a room, says absolutely nothing, does absolutely nothing, and somehow every single pair of eyes in that room is on him. And nobody can explain why. That's not charisma in the traditional sense. That's not stage presence you can learn in a training program. That is something primal, something instinctive, something that exists at a frequency most people can't even detect consciously, but feel in their bones. And when you combine that invisible magnetism with one of the most technically flawless dance abilities in all of K-pop, what you get is a performer who doesn't just leave fans speechless, he leaves them haunted. Like, you watch Lino perform once, and then 3 days later you're lying in bed at 2 in the morning still thinking about the way he moved during that one specific part of that one specific song. That's the Lino effect. And it's inescapable. But before we get into the moments that shattered millions of fans' ability to form coherent sentences, we need to talk about where this man came from, because his backstory is one of the most quietly devastating origin stories in Stray Kids history. Before Lee Know was ever a JYP trainee, before he ever auditioned, before the survival show, before any of it, he was a backup dancer. And not just any backup dancer. Lee Mi-ho was a backup dancer for BTS. Yes, that BTS. The biggest group on the planet. He performed alongside them on stage, behind them, in their shadow, watching from 2 meters away as the world screamed for someone else. Now think about that for a second. Think about what it takes mentally to stand on a stage with the most famous artists in the world, to execute choreography flawlessly, to give everything you have, and to know that nobody in that audience is looking at you. Nobody is chanting your name. Nobody is holding a light stick for you. You are invisible. You are a shadow. And you go home after that show, and you sit in your room, and you think, that could be me. That should be me. But right now, it's not. That kind of experience either breaks you or builds you into something terrifying. And for Lee Know, it did the latter. When he auditioned for JYP Entertainment and entered the Stray Kids survival show, he brought with him a level of professional discipline and performance precision that immediately set him apart. This wasn't a kid who was still figuring out how to perform. This was someone who had already been on world-class stages, who already understood what it meant to move in front of thousands of people, who had already developed a relationship with performance that most trainees wouldn't achieve for years. But here's the brutal twist. Just like Felix, Lee Know was eliminated during the survival show. Eliminated. The former backup dancer, who arguably had more professional stage experience than anyone else in the competition, was told he didn't make the cut. And the reason? It wasn't because of skill. Lee Know's dance ability was never in question. The concern was about his connection with the other members, about whether he could integrate into the group dynamic, about whether his quiet, reserved nature would mesh with the more outgoing personalities around him. And that is a kind of rejection that cuts differently. Because it's not someone telling you you're not talented enough. It's someone telling you that who you are, fundamentally, as a person, might not fit. That your personality is the problem. Can you imagine hearing that? Can you imagine being told that the very essence of who you are is the reason you're being sent away? But just like Felix, Lee Know was brought back. And when he returned, something had shifted inside him. He didn't try to become louder. He didn't try to force himself into a personality that wasn't his. Instead, he leaned into exactly who he was: quiet, mysterious, observant, precise, and he let his performance do every bit of the talking. And good Lord, did it talk. Lee Know's dance style is something that dance professionals have analyzed and praised extensively, and the reason is simple: he is technically near perfect. His isolation work, his body control, his spatial awareness, his ability to hit every single beat with surgical accuracy while simultaneously making it look completely effortless. It's the kind of thing that makes dance instructors pause their classes and say, "Watch this. This is what mastery looks like." But what separates Lee Know from other technically excellent dancers is the feeling. Because here's the thing, you can train someone to hit choreography points perfectly. You can drill technique into muscle memory. But you cannot teach someone to make you feel something when they move. You cannot teach the way Lee Know tilts his head at exactly the right moment, the way his eyes shift from playful to predatory in a fraction of a second, the way he uses negative space, the stillness between movements as a weapon. When Lee Know is still on stage, that stillness is louder than anyone else's movement. It's controlled. It's intentional. It's devastatingly effective. And audiences feel it in their chest like a held breath they didn't realize they were holding. There's a specific performance, and stays who've been in the fandom for a while know exactly which one I'm referring to, where Lee Know had a solo dance break during a concert stage. And the fancam of that moment became one of the most watched Stray Kids performance videos in existence. The comments section on that video is genuinely unhinged. People writing in all caps. People saying they forgot to breathe. People saying they've watched it 40, 50, 60 times and still can't process what they're seeing. Because Lee Know in that moment wasn't just dancing, he was commanding. He was pulling 60,000 people into his orbit through nothing but the way he moved his body, And not a single person in that arena could look away. Not one. That's power. Not the loud, explosive kind of power. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that doesn't need to. Now, here's the part that makes Lee Know even more fascinating, and it's the part that fans talk about in hushed, almost reverent tones, his personality off stage. Because if you only watched his performances, you would think Lee Know is this serious, intense, unapproachable figure. And then you watch a behind-the-scenes video and he's chasing Changbin around a hotel room with a sock. Or he's making fun of Han's sleeping face with the driest, most deadpan humor you've ever witnessed. Or he's cooking an elaborate meal for the members at midnight because he noticed someone looked tired and hungry. Lee Know's humor is legendary within the fandom, not because he's the loudest or the most obviously funny, but because his comedy is surgical. It's timing-based, delivery-based, built on understated wit and an almost sociopathic commitment to keeping a straight face while saying the most absurd things imaginable. He will say something so savage, so precisely targeted, that the other members physically collapse from laughter, and he just stands there, blinking, like he has no idea what's so funny. And fans? Fans lose their minds over it. Compilation videos of Lee Know's humor have millions upon millions of views because people cannot get enough of this contrast. The devastating performer on stage versus the chaotic, cat-loving, member roasting gremlin off stage. And speaking of cats, Lee Know's love for his 3 cats, Suni, Doonji, and Dory, has become one of the most endearing things in K-pop fandom culture. This man talks about his cats with more tenderness and affection than most people talk about anything. He shows pictures, tells stories, gets visibly emotional when he's been away from them for too long during tours. And fans see in that tenderness the real Lee Know, the one behind the mystery, behind the poker face, behind the impenetrable cool. They see a person with an enormous heart who simply expresses love differently than what the world is used to. He doesn't say "I love you" in grand gestures. He says it by cooking for you without being asked. He says it by quietly standing next to you when you're having a hard day. He says it by remembering the small things that everyone else forgets. And that quiet, consistent, unspoken love is what makes fans speechless in a way that no flashy performance ever could. Because it's real. It's unglamorous. It's just a person showing up again and again, in the way he knows how. The moment that crystallizes everything about why Lee Know belongs on this list isn't one single viral clip or one single concert breakdown. It's the accumulated weight of every time fans realized that the person they thought was the hardest to read in Stray Kids was actually the easiest to feel. That behind every sharp joke, every flawless dance move, every mysterious glance, there was a person who cared more deeply than he would ever say out loud. And when that realization hits, when fans finally see the full picture of who Lee Know is, it doesn't just leave them speechless. It leaves them changed. That's Lee Know. The silent storm. The master of control. The man who speaks volumes without opening his mouth. That's number 4. And the list only gets more intense from here. Number 3, Seungmin. The perfectionist whose voice never trembles, never wavers, never lies. I want you to think about something for a second. Something that most people never consider when they talk about talent. We love to celebrate the prodigies, right? The naturals. The ones who are born with some supernatural gift that makes everything look easy. And yeah, that's impressive. Nobody's denying that. But there's another kind of talent that is infinitely rarer, infinitely harder to achieve, and infinitely more terrifying to compete against. It's the talent of the person who wasn't born extraordinary, but decided to become extraordinary anyway. The person who looked at the gap between where they were and where they needed to be, and instead of feeling intimidated, felt motivated. The person who woke up every single day and chose to be better than they were yesterday. Not by a mile, just by an inch. But an inch, every single day, for years and years and years, adds up to something that no natural talent can match. And in Stray Kids, that person has a name. His name is Kim Seungmin. And the reason he's at number 3 on this list, the reason millions of fans have been left speechless by him, is because Seungmin represents something that goes beyond music, beyond performance, beyond K-pop. Seungmin represents the terrifying, beautiful, awe-inspiring power of discipline. Pure, unrelenting, almost inhuman discipline. Let me take you back to the early days, because this is where the foundation of the Seungmin legend was laid. When Seungmin first entered JYP Entertainment as a trainee, he was, by his own honest admission and by the assessment of multiple trainers, not the strongest vocalist in the room. He wasn't the one that trainers pointed at and said, "That kid's going to be a star." He didn't have the kind of raw, undeniable natural instrument that makes people gasp the first time they hear it. What Seungmin had was something else. Something quieter. Something that most people overlooked because it doesn't make for a flashy audition clip. Seungmin had clarity. His voice, even in its early, undeveloped form, had this quality, this crystal clear, almost glass-like transparency that was different from what you typically hear in K-pop. It wasn't the most powerful voice. It wasn't the most unique voice. But it was clean. It was honest. It was the kind of voice that you could listen to for hours without fatigue, the kind that felt like drinking cool water on a hot day. And Seungmin looked at that clarity and thought, "This is my starting point. Now let me build a cathedral on top of it." And build he did. While other trainees might practice a song 10 times and feel satisfied, Seungmin would practice it 50 times. 100 times. He would record himself, listen back, identify the tiniest imperfections, a note held a millisecond too long, a breath taken a fraction too late, a vowel shape that wasn't quite right, and then go back and do it again. And again. And again. The members of Stray Kids have talked about this in multiple interviews, and the way they describe it is almost reverent. They'll say things like, "Seungmin is always the last one in the recording booth. Seungmin will re-record a single line 20 times until it's perfect. When we think a take is great, Seungmin says it's not good enough and does it again." That's not obsession. That's not insecurity. That's craftsmanship. That's a person who respects their art so deeply that they refuse to give anything less than their absolute best every single time, no exceptions, no excuses. And over time, over months, over years, over countless hours of solitary practice, something extraordinary happened. Seungmin's voice didn't just improve. It evolved. It transformed from something clean and pleasant into something genuinely stunning. The control he developed is the kind that vocal coaches use as teaching examples. His pitch accuracy is almost mechanical in its precision, and I don't mean that in a cold, robotic way. I mean that this man can stand on a stage, in front of tens of thousands of screaming fans, with adrenaline pumping through his veins, with monitors blasting, with the chaos of a live concert swirling around him. And he will deliver a vocal performance that sounds virtually identical to the studio recording. Virtually identical. Do you understand how rare that is? Do you understand how difficult it is to maintain that level of vocal stability in a live setting? Most singers, even great singers, even legendary singers, have fluctuations in live performance. Their pitch wavers. Their breath support shifts. Their tone changes slightly under pressure. Seungmin? Seungmin sounds like someone pressed play on the album track and walked away. Except it's not a track. It's him. Standing there. Singing live. Flawless. And the moment that truly put this on the global map, the moment that made millions of fans and non-fans alike go absolutely speechless, was when Seungmin appeared on King of Masked Singer, one of Korea's most respected vocal competition shows. Now, for those who don't know, King of Masked Singer is not some idol popularity contest. This is a show where singers perform wearing elaborate masks so that the audience judges them purely on vocal ability, with zero bias from fame, visuals, or fandom power. Some of Korea's greatest vocalists have appeared on this show. The standard is elite. The expectations are brutal. And when Seungmin stepped onto that stage, hidden behind his mask, and opened his mouth, the reaction in the studio was immediate. Judges leaned forward in their seats. The audience murmured in surprise. Because the voice coming through those speakers was not what anyone expected from a fourth-generation idol rappers group member. It was rich. It was controlled. It was emotionally layered in a way that suggested years of not just technical training, but genuine emotional maturity. Seungmin didn't just sing the notes, he interpreted the song. He made lyrical choices, dynamic choices, phrasing choices that revealed a deep, sophisticated understanding of what it means to communicate through music. And when his mask came off and people realized this was Seungmin from Stray Kids, a group primarily known for its hard-hitting rap and intense performances, the shock was palpable. Comments flooded online. Articles were written. Vocal analysis videos were made. People who had never given Stray Kids' vocal line a second thought were suddenly forced to confront the reality that this group wasn't just about powerful rap and aggressive choreography. It had a vocalist of genuinely elite caliber hiding in plain sight. But here's what makes Seungmin's story even more emotionally powerful, and it's the part that truly leaves fans speechless on a personal level. Seungmin knows he's not the flashiest member. He knows he's not the one who trends on social media for a single expression or a single dance move. He knows that in a group full of explosive personalities and viral moments, his brand of excellence is quieter, steadier, less immediately eye-catching. And he doesn't care. Not because he's indifferent, but because he has made peace with who he is. In a world that constantly rewards the loudest voice, the most dramatic story, the biggest spectacle, Seungmin chose to be excellent in the most unglamorous way possible, through consistency, through reliability, through showing up every single day, every single performance, every single recording session, and delivering at a level that never dips, never falters, never disappoints. The members know it. Bangchan has said explicitly that Seungmin is the member he worries about the least in terms of performance quality because he knows with absolute certainty that Seungmin will deliver. Every single time. And there's something profoundly moving about that, isn't there? In an industry built on unpredictability, on scandals, on highs and lows, on the constant roller coaster of fame, Seungmin is the anchor. He's the foundation that doesn't crack. He's the voice that never trembles, even when everything around him is shaking. Fans have shared countless stories about how Seungmin's stability, both vocal and personal, has been a source of comfort during difficult times. When the group faced challenges, when controversies swirled, when uncertainty loomed, Seungmin was the one who kept going. Not with dramatic speeches. Not with tears. Just by being exactly who he always is, steady, reliable, unwavering, excellent. And for millions of fans around the world, that consistency isn't boring. It's breathtaking. Because in a world where everything changes, where nothing feels certain, where the ground beneath your feet shifts every day, having someone who is always, always, always there, always at their best, always giving you something you can count on, that's not just admirable. That's life-saving. That's Seungmin. The voice that never lies. The standard that never drops. The quiet revolution of someone who proved that you don't have to be the loudest to be the most unforgettable. That's number 3. And we are entering the final 2 now. So let me ask you this. If number 3 is the embodiment of discipline pushed to its absolute limit, what could number 2 possibly bring that takes this list even higher? What if I told you the next member's journey started from the very bottom, the youngest, the least experienced, the one everyone underestimated, and what he did with that position is something that still makes grown adults cry when they talk about it? You think you know the story, but I promise you, you don't know the half of it. Number 2 is next. Number 2, I.N, the youngest who was never supposed to shine this bright, but burned down every expectation in his path. Let me tell you something about being the youngest. In any group, whether it's a K-pop group, a sports team, a family, a classroom, being the youngest comes with a very specific kind of invisible weight that people on the outside never fully understand. You're the one who's always a step behind. You're the one who entered the game last, with the least experience, the least preparation, the least time to develop. Everyone around you is older, stronger, further along in their journey. And no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you improve, there's always this nagging whisper in the back of your mind, and sometimes in the mouths of other people, that says, you're only here because someone let you be here. You didn't earn it the way they did. Now imagine carrying that weight in one of the most competitive, most scrutinized, most unforgiving industries on planet Earth. Imagine being 16 years old, standing in a lineup next to Bangchan, who trained for 7 years, next to Lino, who was a professional backup dancer, next to Changbin and Han, who could write and produce music at a level most adults can't reach, next to Hyunjin, whose performance ability was already being called generational. Imagine looking at all of that talent, all of that experience, all of that fire, and knowing that by every measurable standard, you were the least prepared person in the room. That's where young Hyunjin started. That's where I.N's story begins. And the fact that it begins there, at the absolute bottom, at the point of maximum doubt, at the place where most people would crumble under the sheer intimidation of their surroundings, is exactly what makes his story one of the most speechless-inducing journeys in all of K-pop. Because I.N didn't crumble. He climbed. Let's go back to the survival show, because this is where you need to understand just how precarious I.N's position was. When the evaluations happened, when the trainees were assessed on vocals, dance, rap, and stage presence, I.N was consistently ranked near the bottom. Not because he was untalented, he had potential, and the trainers could see it, but because he was raw, unpolished, green in a way that the other members simply weren't. His vocals were thin and underdeveloped. His dance technique was behind. His stage presence, while earnest and endearing, lacked the commanding power that the more experienced trainees brought to their performances. And during the survival show, there were genuine, real, documented moments where I.N's place in the group was in question. Evaluators discussed whether he was ready, whether including someone so underdeveloped would hold the group back, whether it would be kinder to him and to the group to let him go and give him more time to train. Those conversations happened, on camera, for the world to see. And I.N knew about them. He knew that people were questioning whether he belonged. He knew that his name was the one most likely to be called if someone was going to be cut. And the footage from that period, if you go back and watch it with this context in mind, is absolutely heartbreaking. You can see it in his eyes. You can see the fear, the determination, the desperate, almost frantic need to prove that he deserved to be there. He would practice longer than anyone else. He would ask the older members for help, swallowing his pride, admitting his weaknesses, begging to be taught. And the older members, Bang Chan especially, took him under their wing. Not out of pity, out of belief. Because they saw something in I.N that the evaluators' scorecards couldn't capture. They saw heart. Raw, stubborn, unbreakable heart. And when I.N made it into the final lineup, when his name was confirmed as a member of Stray Kids, the relief, the joy, the overwhelming emotion on his face was the kind of thing that makes you grab your chest involuntarily. He didn't celebrate like someone who won a prize. He cried like someone who had been drowning and finally reached the surface. But here's where the story gets truly extraordinary, because making the group was just the beginning. I.N knew better than anyone, better than any critic, better than any online commenter, that he was the weakest link at debut. He knew that when Stray Kids' first songs dropped, his parts were shorter. He knew that in performances, the camera lingered on him less. He knew that in fan polls and popularity rankings, he was often at the bottom. And instead of letting that reality destroy him, he used it as fuel. The vocal transformation of I.N over the course of Stray Kids' career is, without exaggeration, one of the most dramatic and impressive developments in modern K-pop history. Go listen to I.N's vocals during the debut era, the thin, slightly shaky, clearly developing voice of a teenager who's still finding himself. Now go listen to I.N's vocals on Stray Kids' more recent releases. The difference is so stark, so staggering, so fundamentally night and day that if you played the two clips side by side, most people wouldn't believe it's the same person. His voice deepened, matured, and developed a richness and emotional weight that vocal coaches have publicly praised as evidence of extraordinary dedication. The breath support improved dramatically. The pitch accuracy sharpened to a razor's edge. The emotional delivery, the ability to convey feeling through tone and phrasing, went from earnest, but limited to genuinely moving. And this didn't happen by accident. This happened because I.N spent years working on his voice with the kind of quiet, unglamorous, behind-the-scenes dedication that doesn't get captured in fan edits or viral clips. While fans were sleeping, I.N was in a vocal practice room. While the internet was debating who the most talented member was, I.N was recording take after take after take, refusing to stop until he heard improvement. And the members noticed. Oh, they noticed. There are interviews where Bang Chan talks about I.N's growth with this look in his eyes, this mixture of pride and awe, like a parent watching their child accomplish something they never imagined possible. Changbin has said that I.N's improvement made him reflect on his own work ethic. Seungmin, the vocal perfectionist, has acknowledged I.N's development with genuine, unguarded respect. When the hardest to impress members of your own group are publicly saying this person's growth is inspiring, that tells you everything you need to know. But the moment, the singular, devastating, heart-stopping moment that left millions of fans worldwide genuinely, truly, completely speechless, was during a concert. And I need you to really picture this, because the power of this moment only lands if you understand the context. I.N was standing on a stage in front of an arena packed with tens of thousands of fans. And he was given a solo moment. Not a quick ad-lib. Not a short bridge. A real, sustained, spotlight on him solo moment where the music stripped down, the lights dimmed, and it was just I.N and his voice filling the entire venue. And what came out of him was not the voice of the nervous teenager who almost didn't make the group. What came out was a vocal performance so controlled, so emotionally rich, so breathtakingly beautiful that the entire arena, went silent. Not polite silence. Stunned silence. The kind of silence that happens when a room full of people collectively experiences something so unexpected, so powerful, that their bodies literally forget how to make noise. And then, when he finished, when the last note hung in the air for that one perfect second before fading the eruption. The screaming. The crying. Fans with tears streaming down their faces, not because of a sad song, but because they had just witnessed the completion of a journey that they had watched from the very beginning. They remembered the 16-year-old with braces who could barely hold a note. They remembered the online comments saying he wasn't good enough. They remembered every moment of doubt, every ranking that put him last, every evaluation that questioned his place. And now here he was standing in front of them, commanding a stage with the confidence and skill of someone who had earned every single second of this moment through nothing but pure, relentless, almost superhuman willpower. That's what left fans speechless. Not just the performance itself, but the journey it represented. The proof, in real time, in front of their eyes, that starting at the bottom doesn't mean you stay at the bottom. That being underestimated doesn't define your ceiling. That the youngest, the least experienced, the one nobody expected to shine, can become the brightest light in the room if they simply refuse, absolutely refuse, to give up. And beyond the vocals, beyond the performances, I.N's personality evolution has been equally stunning to witness. The shy, quiet magne who used to hide behind the older members has transformed into a confident, witty, self-assured young man who holds his own in every interview, every variety show, every chaotic behind-the-scenes moment. He roasts the Hyungs now. He initiates chaos. He walks into rooms with an energy that says, I belong here and I know it. And the beautiful thing is he does know it. Not with arrogance. With earned confidence. The kind of confidence that only comes from having walked through fire and come out the other side stronger. That's N. Number 1 Han, the genius who fights a war inside his own mind every single day and still creates music that saves millions. We're here. The final name. The top of the list. And I want to be very intentional about how I begin this, because Han Jisung, the person sitting at number 1, is not here because of one viral moment. He's not here because of one incredible performance. He's not here because of stats or records or trending hashtags. Han is at number 1 because he represents something that transcends entertainment entirely. He represents the raw, unfiltered, heartbreaking, awe-inspiring reality of what it means to be a genius who is at war with his own mind and to choose, every single day, to keep creating, keep performing, keep giving. Even when every fiber of his being is screaming at him to stop. This is the story of Han Jisung. And I need you to listen closely, because this one is going to stay with you long after you finish reading. Let's start with the talent, because before we get into the emotional depth, you need to understand just how absurdly, ridiculously, almost unfairly talented this person is. Han Jisung is what the music industry calls a triple threat, and even that term feels inadequate for what he actually does. He raps at a level that puts him in conversation with the best in K-pop history. His speed, his flow variation, his rhythmic complexity, his ability to switch cadences mid-verse without losing a single beat, it's the kind of technical mastery that takes most rappers decades to develop, and Han was doing it as a teenager. But that's only 1/3 of the equation. Because Han also sings. And not in the way some rappers sing, where they sort of talk melodically over a chorus and call it good enough. No, Han genuinely sings. His vocal tone is warm, rich, emotionally textured, and capable of carrying entire songs without any support from the rap skills that made him famous. There are Stray Kids songs where Han's vocal performance is the emotional centerpiece, not Seungmin's, not I.N's, not anyone else's. And he delivers with a sincerity and vulnerability that makes you forget he's also one of the most ferocious rappers in the game. The duality is almost unfair. It's like discovering that a world-class sprinter is also a concert pianist. It shouldn't be possible. But Han makes it look like the most natural thing in the world. And then, there's the producing. As 1/3 of 3 Racha, alongside Bang Chan and Changbin, Han has been writing, composing, and producing music since before Stray Kids even officially debuted. We're talking about a person who is writing fully realized songs with complex structures, layered instrumentals, emotionally sophisticated lyrics at 16, 17 years old. While most teenagers were worrying about homework and school drama, Han Jisung was sitting in a studio at 3 in the morning, crafting melodies and writing verses that would eventually be heard by millions of people around the world. The sheer volume of his creative output is staggering. Hundreds of songs. Hundreds. And not filler tracks or throwaway B-sides, genuinely excellent, critically praised, fan-beloved songs that form the backbone of Stray Kids' identity. Music critics have noted that Han's songwriting has a quality that is rare in K-pop. It feels personal. Not personal in a generic, I wrote this about my feelings way. Personal in a way that makes you feel like you're reading someone's private diary. Like you've been given access to the most intimate corners of another human being's mind. And that brings us to the part of Han's story that elevates him from incredibly talented idol to the person at number 1 who left more fans speechless than anyone else on this list. Because Han Jisung has been open courageously, painfully, almost recklessly open about his battle with anxiety and panic disorder. In an industry that demands perfection, that rewards invulnerability, that punishes any sign of weakness with ruthless public scrutiny, Han stood up and said, "I'm not okay. And I'm going to tell you about it." And he didn't just tell fans in a carefully worded statement through a company press release. He told them through his music. He told them through his lyrics. He wrote about the panic attacks, the real ones, the ones that hit you in the middle of the night, the ones that make you feel like you're dying, the ones that convince you that you can't breathe, that the walls are closing in, that you're losing control of your own body and your own mind. He wrote about the fear of performing, the irony of being someone whose entire career is built on standing in front of thousands of people while simultaneously being terrified of standing in front of thousands of people. He wrote about the days where getting out of bed felt impossible. The days where the thought of going on stage made him physically ill. The days where the voices in his head were louder than any cheering crowd. And he put all of it into songs that millions of people listened to, connected with, and cried over. There was a moment, and this is the moment that stays considered one of the most defining events in Stray Kids' entire history, during a live event where Han experienced a panic attack on stage. On stage. In front of cameras. In front of fans. In front of the world. And the way the members responded, the way Bang Chan immediately moved to his side, the way the other members created a protective circle around him, the way the group communicated silently, seamlessly, to shield their brother from the cameras and give him space to breathe, that moment broke the internet. Not because of the panic attack itself, but because of what it revealed about this group. It revealed that Stray Kids wasn't just a team of performers. It was a family. A real one. The kind that doesn't perform closeness for content. The kind that instinctively, without hesitation, drops everything to protect one of their own. And Han? After recovering, after taking the time he needed, Han came back. He always comes back. And that is why he is number one. Not because he's perfect. Not because he's invincible. Because he's the exact opposite. He is fragile, and he is brave, and he is broken, and he is brilliant, and he is all of those things simultaneously, all of the time, and he absolutely refuses to let the darkness win. Every time Han steps on a stage, he is fighting a battle that the audience cannot see. Every time he grabs that microphone, every time he looks into those lights, every time he delivers a rap verse with that fiery, explosive, chest-rattling intensity, he is doing it in spite of a mind that is actively trying to convince him he can't. And he does it anyway. So let's take a step back now. Let's breathe. Let's look at what we just went through. 8 members, 8 stories, 8 reasons why millions of people around the world have been left completely, utterly, irreversibly speechless by a group called Stray Kids. And at number 1, we met Han, the genius who fights a war inside his own mind every single day and still creates music that saves lives, whose honesty about his struggles gave millions of people permission to be honest about theirs. 8 members, 8 different paths. 8 different kinds of brilliance. But one thing connects every single one of them. Not one of them had it easy. Not one of them was handed their success on a silver platter. Every member of Stray Kids earned their place through pain, through sacrifice, through doubt, through failure, and through the stubborn, beautiful, almost irrational refusal to give up. And maybe that's the real reason they leave fans speechless. It's not just the music. It's not just the performances. It's not just the visuals or the records or the sold-out stadiums. It's the fact that when you look at Stray Kids, you see yourself. You see your own struggles reflected back at you through people who took those same struggles and turned them into art. And that connection, that mirror, that feeling of being truly seen by someone on a stage thousands of miles away is the kind of thing no algorithm can manufacture and no marketing team can fake. Stray Kids didn't just make fans speechless. They made them feel understood. And in a world that often feels impossibly loud and impossibly lonely, being understood might be the most powerful thing any artist can give. That's the list. That's the story. That's Stray Kids. Thank you for watching, thank you for reading, and thank you for staying all the way to the end. If any of these stories moved you, if any of these members inspired you, if any of these moments reminded you why music matters, then this list did its job. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and most importantly, just stay.